This is MDR. Welcome to this special episode where we talk about both the Dawn films, analyze them, see the goods and bads. I like to remind you that while this is a compilation of the 2 videos I've made on Dawn, there is additional content at the end of this video where I rank both the films in the franchise and give some of my other thoughts as well. So it'd be great if you left a like on this video since it really helps with the efforts made here at the MDR channel. And well, enjoy! In 1978 released the action drama film Dawn, written by the legendary writer duo Salim Javed, starring Amitabh Bachchan as Dawn, the most popular actor of his time. Then, as almost 3 decades had passed on, Shah Rukh Khan had emerged as his generation's definitive actor, mostly starring in romance comedies and romance dramas. But by 2005, critics began to denounce that though Shah Rukh Khan's career had begun with villainous roles, usually involved in most of the action of his films, his acting career had now boiled down to just romance, and that he couldn't fit in an action role if he tried. So, 28 years after the original Dawn, Javed Akhtar's son Farhan Akhtar would put on the director's cap to remake his father's all-time action classic, starring Shah Rukh Khan. To be honest, SRK's career has seen little versatility in its genres, even though he's shown much versatility in committing to his roles. And that's why probably he's been able to stay fresh through so many decades. And also India's most financially successful actor of all time. And a sound public figure and motivational speaker. And while I like his romance films a lot, partly due to childhood nostalgia and sometimes you need to watch simple films philosophy, I think his action films stand out the most, of which the numbers are few. But out of all, Dawn is my absolute favorite. So let's analyze why. Dawn was released in 2006 to critical and commercial acclaim, and I remember seeing it not on the big screen but on my little square CRT television a few months after its release. And then I saw it a lot of times because I loved the film, as it was not only the first proper spy action film from India in a long time that wasn't trying to copy what Hollywood had done the previous summer, but I liked the film for its crazy twists and turns, however unbelievable they may be, because as a young child I just couldn't see most of them coming. In addition, seeing the Bollywood flavor treated to a modern espionage action genre film was another thing that made Dawn unique. The first Dawn film succeeds in a lot of things. As an action film, there's more than enough of every kind of car chase, hand-to-hand combat, clever heists, and the guns blazing. The overall aesthetic of the film carries a Matrix-like look to itself with dull green tints on just about every frame of the film, a look probably the first time I ever saw in a Bollywood film. And though it does not do the original Dawn and other espionage action films like James Bond, and carries elements of films like Matrix and Payback, what I think helps it find its own rhythm and tone is what separates it from generic action films are 2 things. The music and the gripping storyline. While some songs might be unnecessary and forced, others are really good. They really add to the film. Some like Main Hoon Dawn and Aaj Ki Raat put you in a trance-like state as if to sort of deceive the viewer, but also leaving us with subtle hints towards what's coming next in the story of the film. It works good in both showing a promo to the film and all the characters that it has, but also being really related to the story of the film. While it does carry some plot points and solid music remakes from the original, Dawn could have easily been a bad reboot compared to the 1978 classic. But it works because it takes the bigger budget seriously. The international locations, a great ensemble of side characters, its multiple antagonists, and heck, the anti-hero Dawn, and then successfully connects them all into one thread. The basic gist of Dawn is that everybody wants to kill or betray Dawn, and Dawn, the main man of his own film, just somehow gets away with it. That's it, that's the main gist. Though the film goes in depth on each character, on Dawn as well, showing that the journey they have, their own purposes, to deceive everyone else and get away with these grand crimes. But Dawn is the real winner, always. If you can't catch it coming, the major plot twist of the film has Dawn revealing that when he surrendered to Vardhan, who then planted a similar looking proxy into Dawn's gang, it wasn't actually his lookalike but he himself all along. When you look back on it, it's part ridiculous and part amazing. Quite ridiculous, because how does one find an exactly similar looking person to an underworld kingpin, of which there are very less photos anyway? And part amazing, because if James Bond can change his face every decade and nobody minds it, then we should all just shut up and watch the movie. In retrospect, it's startling how you never feel that lookalike isn't actually Don, though as soon as he's alone, you think that, oh yeah, he isn't the real Don. Shah Rukh Khan sells you on this idea very well. The body language, the way of speaking, everything changes in a matter of a second, and you're always on the edge whether it really is him or it isn't. And that's great acting on part of SRK, so props to that. If you look at the star cast and what roles they play, it's a long list of all kinds of actors in all kinds of roles. Boman Irani's sudden antagonist is one of the better and more believable reveals of the film, because you can't then backtrack it to his earlier actions in the film. His doubts on why a senior officer is getting involved in his case, him letting Don go before kidnapping him to plant a proxy, while Don's reveal at the end of the film can only be left to pure speculation, because there's nothing else suggesting what may have happened or not. Though he's primarily a comedic actor, Boman Irani does the crazy desperate villain's villain role rather greatly. Priyanka Chopra's Roma character too has a constant back and forth hate and romance contrast with Don that carries on even in the sequel, and Arjun Rampal's character is just tragic in this film. So much goes wrong for the guy, but nobody compares to the charisma and screen presence of Don, who plays this amazingly mysterious criminal that is not only hard to figure out, but what he might be up to next just right after you figure something out about him. You just can't ever expect it. Don's character crosses into that realm where you think anything can happen, like literally anything. So you can't ever have enough theories to narrow down what's coming next in the film. Dawn, regardless of its numbered cliches and few outdated characteristics, requires your full attention, always, in order to follow it. And to me, that is a signal of a good screenplay. The cinematography, like I mentioned, is beautiful. In parts, it makes the film shine out, and in parts, it makes the film really dark and dullish. Like, it works completely, and Farhan Akhtar's direction is really good. We all know that Farhan Akhtar has directed some great films like Lakshya, which also carried a similar green tint vibe, and the friendship love classic film Dil Chahta Hai, which is another classic. So Farhan Akhtar's direction here is just as good, but it lands the film in a 3-hour runtime, which is grand. 3 hours is a long time for a film, but it never lets you take your eyes off of it because it's a very tight screenplay, which I think alludes to the fact that it's both quality and quantity. Though in no way it is like Christopher Nolan's prime films like Inception or Interstellar, or even Tenet, but it is like Christopher Nolan's early films like Insomnia, but with exaggerated plot twists. Well, you can't help but feel bad for all the good people just trying to get their revenge and most of them failing by the end. Dawn is the kind of film that wants you to root for the bad guy, and it certainly leaves you with a lot to hate about Dawn. But guess what? You can't really help but root for this villain. The main distinction between James Bond and Dawn is perfectly described by Shah Rukh Khan himself.
Dawn is really, James Bond gone rogue.
And here's mine, MDR's final say on Dawn. It is true that while James Bond is a good guy getting things done, but with sometimes morally wrong methods, Dawn is a bad guy who gets things done with sometimes morally worse methods. Following the success of the first Dawn film, it took less than a year for the film's director Farhan Akhtar to announce a sequel. Though Dawn 2 wouldn't come out until the next 5 years, allowing many changes to be made to the script, look, and feel of the film, along with a budget almost as much as the collection of the first film. So when it did come out, was Dawn 2 worth it? Let's find out. The first Dawn film was both a critical and a commercial success. It was a good action film, nothing more than that, nothing less than it. Made on a relatively short budget for an action film of 35 crores. It wasn't surprising that this film had crossed over 100 when the worldwide collections were calculated. Regardless of what people might have to say about it, Dawn had exceeded expectations, and that was the truth. So much so that you still can find many fans saying that they prefer the remake over the original. So, with any action film that is a success, there's got to be a sequel, right? Between Dawn and Dawn 2, Shah Rukh Khan starred in some classic films and some bad ones. But you can't ignore the fact that some of the most versatile and best performances of his career were in this period. From giving us the retro romance classic Om Shanti Om, to one of his best acting performances yet with Chak De India, to more weirder romances like Rab Ne Banadi Jodi, to the political drama film My Name is Khan. SRK was seemingly expanding his acting horizons, taking on new endeavors and versatile roles, and mostly succeeding at all of them, while also giving special appearances in kids' horror films to extended guest appearances in drama comedies like Billu Barber, and also some other ventures like the failed superhero film Ravan. It's strange, but it reflects SRK's career, its highs and lows in a short amount of time. But while all this was happening, Farhan Akhtar had already announced that he had been working on a Dawn 2 script, while also starring in a number of movies, delivering some classics even. This had obviously slowed down the pace of Dawn 2 screenplay moving towards completion. Now, Dawn 2 obviously is a film that was bound to happen, some way or another. But whether the 5-year gap between both the films was a good or a bad thing is not something I can totally comment on, because I just don't remember much of it. I do remember that I was excited for the film, though again I did not see this one at the cinema again. I'm really sorry, SRK. I did see it on the TV though. In fact, on the same one that I saw the first film on, but in a different city. At that point, I just moved to a new town and was keeping myself busy watching a lot of Hollywood films, and I think that contributed to my liking of Dawn 2 even more, which in its essence is very much like a Hollywood action film, unlike the first one. Is this a good thing though? We'll come back to this topic later on in the video. With only a few exceptions like Terminator 2 or Mad Max 2, most film sequels especially action film sequels, are way off compared to their first entries. They're much likely to overdo the good aspects of the first and introduce a lot of things that weren't needed in the sequel without addressing the issues of its source, and thus ending up losing its unique quality. This happens with most films, in any genre, because sequels are a tricky thing to play with. In most cases, they always turn out bad and people always find something negative to look into. This is partly because if you do the same thing again as the first one, and people are like, well, what's different then? What's new in the sequel? And if you do something new, then people are like, oh, it's too different. That's why you have to find the middle ground, which is extremely tough to do. And so the question arises, how is Dawn 2? Well, let's analyze. Dawn 2 begins with the recap of the previous film as Dawn lays out a brief scheme for his next set of grand crimes, sort of like a pitch for the sequel. I have to say that the opening of Dawn 2 is better than the first film, but it couldn't happen this way without the first one, even though they're mostly similar, just in different locations and, well, different hairstyles. Dawn's presence is immediately felt. The strong vibes from the powerful score only makes it better, and it doesn't waste much time to just get into it. After he takes on Asia in the first film, the premise of Dawn 2 has Dawn setting out to take on the entire Europe, planning to get the European currency printing plates, thus crumbling the entire economy and money circulation of Europe, and, somewhere slipping in his business. Now, this is a great setup for the film, as not only the audience expects to see something similar as with the first film, but also expects things to be crazier and on an even grander level. The middle ground is well set. Alongside Dawn, all the cast is here to reprise their roles as well. You've got Boman Irani as Vardhan again, Priyanka Chopra Jonas as Roma, the late great Puri as Officer Malik. Basically, we have all the major side characters from the previous film, with the exception of two. First being Isha Kopikar's character Anita, which is replaced by Lara Datta's Aisha, which is very strange because Aisha isn't Anita, but her only purpose in the film is to replace Anita's character. She's the new partner for Dawn, but there's nothing new about her role. From her looks to the way she speaks, all closely resembles the first part's Anita character. And while I respect and like some of the other roles Lara Datta has done in her filmography, I honestly preferred Anita's character more from the first film. Her jealousy with other women close to Dawn, her loyalty to Dawn, her acting was all done in a very subtle manner. Something I preferred in the first film that was, in the best way I can describe it, a little overdone in the second film. It doesn't help that only a few years ago she was a part of Dawn's parody in the comedy film Partner. The second being Arjun Rampal's character Jasjeet, who I think stays back for the better as the story arc was completed in the first film well enough. Though his character is replaced by the new protege Samir Ali, but him helping Dawn in this film is just not a 15-minute climax build-up, but almost half of the film. However, even though Samir's character is given more screen time than Jasjeet's in the first film, it does fall short of Arjun Rampal's role, whose character development and backstory was much more emotional and on point. It seemed more of a genuine reason to sympathize for his character because because he suffered so many losses, while Samir's character is just trying to make an easy buck. Back to the setup of Dawn 2, it's mad to say the least. It has so much going on in the first half, which is my favorite part of the film. But you have to agree that the second half of Dawn doesn't completely live up to how good the first half of the film is. Now, I'm not saying that it's bad, it's actually really interesting. But so much happens in the first half that the audience is left with a sour taste in their mouths. And they're only given popcorn, they were promised a sandwich and a can of cola along with it. Does that analogy make sense? One of the major cons of Dawn 2 is its inconsistency. For instance, we're introduced to a number of villains in the beginning of the film who are never ever seen again, and Roma's angle with Arjun, which never properly rounds up. You know, all these story arcs that the first half of the film sets up but then never really gets back to it. That's why the first half seems so crowded and it feels so fantastic because there's so much happening that it's hard to keep up. But then in the second half it's just one thing, and then like a 2-minute epilogue with really no meaning other than, well, showing that Dawn is cool, which he is, but it just doesn't. I love the action in this film more than the first one, as that film is more narratively driven while Dawn 2 is more action driven, and the twist villain duo of Vardhan and Jabbar contrasts well against Dawn. Any of the villains in the film are just unimpressive, to say the least. Boman Irani's Vardhan role is just as memorable as the previous film because he keeps making these little plans trying to double cross Dawn, and then he keeps losing to him again and again. And the other physical half of the duo is Jabbar, this big guy, but his small brains make him less intimidating. Plus SRK's Krav Maga moves only make him look more like an idiot, as he doesn't seem as experienced in combat as SRK. He just looks like he's buffed up, and there's nothing else. I like that most of the action in the film, in its essential moments like the climax itself, is based around hand-to-hand combat and a few explosions here and there, instead of just guns blazing everywhere all the time, even though there are moments like those, don't get me wrong. But in its essential moments, in the main fights, Dawn 1 and Dawn 2 both have melee combats, which is something that I just absolutely love. They could have easily made Jabbar's character something like Hobbs from Fast and the Furious films, where he's both intelligent and buffed up, and that's a scary guy, where he's got brains and the body. But you know, if you're going to have the villain from the previous film show up, which a lot of people love, alongside the new one, which isn't as impressive, a comparison is going to be hard to avoid. And this guy, while he's important in the film, is just corporate dirt. I don't even remember his name. Maybe it's Mr. No Personality. Sorry for the bad joke. My favorite aspect of the film, besides Dawn himself, has to be the character development of Roma, which is first left behind when her angle with Arjun goes nowhere, but it comes back when she's involved with Dawn again, which, to be honest, is really what matters, especially when both have to team up for the final bout in the film. Their chemistry goes beyond the playful back and forth of the first film to almost care and love in the second, an angle that is brought to a beautiful end when Roma is being taken away in an ambulance as Dawn gazes at her, resembling the first film's ending. But unlike Roma's doubts about Dawn's true identity, Dawn just goes off into the night knowing that Roma will be fine. Much like the film's tagline, the chase continues. The twists in this film don't have a lot to do with Dawn himself. Some, like the mask bit, which is a nod to the first film's plot reveal, are just more out there. You can expect them. Though I like how in this film, Dawn is always 2 steps ahead of everyone, unlike when he was captured by Vardhan in the first one. There, he created an opportunity out of adversity. Here, he seems to create opportunities, then convert them to adversities, then back to opportunities again, all by himself, just because he's Dawn. Everything in the film, the successes, the failures, then become a part of Dawn's plan. You just can't tell, but it's always going how Dawn wants it to go. SRK's second coming as Dawn is just as charismatic as the first film. Honestly, he's done the role better here than the first film, even though the film is overall less focused on just Dawn, allowing a lot of side characters to take up the screen time. Whenever SRK is on the screen, it feels like an event. The long hairstyle in the beginning is a legendary look, and I hope it returns in some other film of SRK. And so is the other one which he had in this film in Ravan. The physique, the aura, you know, it's all here. And especially the dialogues, which are part cheesy and part narcissistic, but that's Dawn for you. I'd compare it to something like, I don't know, Batman Arkham Asylum being the first Dawns, and Batman Arkham City with Dawn 2. Wait. What? Even the color grading in both the games and the movies are the same. The green is in the first entry, and then the grey and the red in the second one. Whoa, that's a deduction that nobody else can make. You've got to at least leave a like and subscribe for that. Anyway, the least likable thing about the film is its music, which severely lacks depth this time. Understand that I'm talking about the music, not the background score. I like that. The background score is awesome. It's not inspired, the music, or motivated to enhance the film. It's just sort of there. And if you have seen my video on the first Dawn film, you know how much I liked some of the music in that. It just transcended the film into something very, very unique. Here though, it's what it is. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just all the proper songs are just rehashed from the first film, which are already remakes of the original Dawn. So by this point, they've really milked it. I feel like the first Dawn set up a great franchise in the making, but sadly we only ever got one other Dawn film. A part of me wishes there were more Dawn films, but another part of me understands why less is more concept works better for this franchise. It's a sort of event film. I mean, maybe that's why it's an event to even cover the series even on this channel. If you look at it in a positive light, the worst thing about Dawn 2 is that there is less of it. The commercial runtime of the film also speaks to why it is more Hollywood-like. I wish the second half of the film offered as much as the first half does. But even as how it is, I like Dawn 2. It's a good action film, much more grounded in what it set out to do and less of experimenting like the first film does. It is pretty transparent that Dawn 2 doesn't have an inspiring source that it can borrow from. And so the end result is a film that has an original take on a franchise that was built on remaking a cult hit. And what comes to fruition is, it's not too bad. It's actually pretty good. Alright, so here we are. If you've made it till this point, thanks for giving me the precious time from your life. And now that you are here, let's do the final bidding and see which Dawn film is better. Here's my MDR's ranking. Though the Dawn franchise doesn't consist of the smartest or greatest spy films, I like the two films for their aesthetics, for having subtlety where there should be exaggeration and exaggeration where there should be subtlety. It's over-the-top plot twists, and more than anything, simple childhood nostalgia. I do wish that there were more Dawn films. They could have easily spiraled the franchise into India's James Bond-like series. Different generations, different actors, but the same character. However, having so less to compare with and so much to talk about, I think it makes sense that Dawn is one of those series that is better off with less content. But if I needed to rank these films, well, if you asked me 10 years ago, which is my favorite Dawn film, I'd say Dawn 2, because I liked how Hollywood-like that film is. I loved that film as a kid for all its coolness and its style, which was its target. But now, years later, I don't see much substance in it, at least not when compared to the strong screenplay, cinematography, music and direction of the first film. I like Dawn 2 as well, don't get me wrong, and I hope you've gotten that point by now, but the first Dawn film has really grown on me over the years. It's a great remake that takes the goods of its source and builds on that with a new perspective. It's one of the 2000s best action films, despite its flaws, which exist in anything really. It's a proper action film done right, but in the Bollywood way, which is great because it's unique. While Dawn 2 is a proper action film almost done right, but in the Hollywood way, which is great too, but not so unique. And I respect the team for taking their chances to make something different compared to the first entry in order to not make the product stale and keep it fresh, even a decade later. So my final ranking for the Dawn franchise is Dawn 2 at number 2 and Dawn at number 1. Thanks for watching this special episode. It's been quite lengthy, I understand, but that's what makes it a special. Anyway, I hope you love the content. I put my heart and soul into it. I love making it, so I hope it comes across in some way, shape or form to you. Please don't spread any hate in the comments or in general. Make sure you leave a like on this video, it helps me more than you know. And make sure you're subscribed for such videos in the future. Take care.